All right. Okay, well, I'm going to start the tour. We're going to go out of here and we're going to walk up to Centennial. And I'm going to do the talking. I don't want to hear what somebody told you. Okay? Everything that I deal with is facts. I only open my mouth if I have facts and documents, right, Reverend? Right. So there's no argument out of me if you know what you're talking about, okay? So we're going to go up the street. This is where life begins. First of all, I want you to know that at one time, Washington Street went all the way over there. Okay, all the way over by the depot. Okay, now, it's hard to believe that when they put, no, it's not hard to believe, when they put Centennial Street in here, all of a sudden it became the dividing line between the races. We were told, don't go on the other side of Centennial, expect trouble. I'm sure they were over here. So, and I have not found one thing in my research to say what happened. But I'll give you some things. There was a street over here called Cherry Perry Street. And that's where our first black school was located. It was a freedman school, okay? 3 black men wrote the superintendent of schools from the state of North Carolina and asked for money to build a school. And it was located over. That was in 1868 when they did that. But guess what? 1868, they got the money from the Freedmen's Bureau to build this school. And it was some little shack, but it was something to educate black kids. Unfortunately, if you look at some of the documents out there, they give Solomon Blair this Quaker credit, but nobody has ever been able to show me a document. I can show them records. This is documented in the Freedmen's Bureau records right up at the library. There was a hospital up here called Gifford General Hospital. And it was 1.5 blocks from Centennial here. All the colonial houses on this side. And they didn't treat black folks. And my grandfather, this is a true story, my family came down from the mountains. And they're very fair people. And he liked to sit around like they did in the mountains around the old stoves and chew tobacco and spit on the stove and all that crazy stuff. So when his appendix erupted one day, and they killed over on the floor, and they rushed him to the hospital.
Which hospital was this?
Gifford General Hospital. And thinking that he was white, they operated on him. Well, my grandmother Sue, my step-grandmother, like your shirt, she was a very dark lady, grabbed my father, Carl and Annie Mae and all of them, there were 4 of them, and she came to check on her husband. News got to her. We didn't have telephones in there. And the news got to her, and she went in there. My father remembers this. He just tells us the story over and over. We walked in and said, I came to check on my husband, Mr. Lloyd Chavis. And said, Lloyd Chavis.
Lloyd.
And the man told her, Miss, we don't treat colored patients. We don't even have a colored janitor. And my grandmother started to perform. They did a room by room and put my grandfather out when they found him. They just operated on him. True story. And also there was a group of, down at Moon and Washington Street, on the corner there was these beautiful girls. I mean, they were some beautiful young ladies, about 4 or 5 of them. And they were very fair. And one was dating a white man, and they were in a cab one night. And they had an argument, and he cut her throat. He jumped out of the cab and ran, thinking she was white. They took her to Gifford General. This was in the Enterprise, front page. Took her up here. Somehow or another, he figured what they took away. So he goes to the hospital and he tells them she's colored. They wrapped a bandage around her neck, put her out, and she bled to death before she could get to her brother's house. So that's some of the things that were going on that, once again, are factual. Patrick Harmon, you've heard of Patrick Harmon. Well, the reason Patrick's involved in Washington Street and the community, his parents, you know, they owned the telephone company. Harmon's owned the telephone company when they first started. His grandparents lived on the corner of Steele Street in Washington. And he got involved, that's the reason he got involved in Washington Street. One thing led to another, thank goodness, and we got some exposure down here. Behind this building on the other side of the, Martin Luther King Drive? I keep calling it Kilby Drive. There's the old incinerator. All I remember is this big round concrete with a big hole in the middle and fire coming. You can see the fire down there, and they would dump the horses in, all the trash in there. And you know, black people could have controlled High Point way back when because all the utilities were in our community. The gas company, the water company, everything. All we had to do was take over. It's amazing. But the gas tanks weren't funny though, because if those tanks had gone off down the street here, we'd have all been dead. But look, let's take this building right here. Washington Street. You go back to 1859, that era back there, brick was expensive. You know, very few people could afford. So every inch of this street, there was a building, a house of some type. Okay, I mean, everything was just jammed up to it, each other. And so I cannot really pinpoint who built it. I know someone was going to build an opera house, but that doesn't document it. Let's just say it's there. But the important thing is, these were spaces, office spaces. There were office spaces upstairs. Dr. J.C. Morgan was our second black doctor to come to High Point. Christopher Morgan. He came from the islands down there. And he was about this tall. And his whole family was about that tall. But anyway, he had an office upstairs. But a lady came here in the 20s. Her name was Eva Ziegler. She graduated from Howard University Dental School. Her daddy was a minister. He preached down east, and they moved to High Point. That made Eva Ziegler the first female dentist in High Point, and the first female dentist, period, black or white. But nobody ever talks about Eva, okay? But she practiced right here in this building. Old man Ganaway used to repair T-model Fords. You know, when that era came in, he had business over here, he's making money. Old man Ganaway. And then they came out with, started with bicycles, then he got into that, with the T-model Fords. And he had a run-in with the city of High Point, and he got mad at him, so he moved down to Trinity. And they used to have a park down there, Ganaway Park, because we used to go down there and picnic Ganaways. I'm showing how people, you know, they have some sense now. They knew how to do things. They weren't backing off. He wanted his kids to go to school, but they were too far from the south side, or too far from over here, so he took them to court. And guess what? They had to create a Ganaway school district for them. So his kids were guaranteed of education. That's in this community right here. Turn around, the Ymca store there. That steeple up on top, that was their 50th anniversary. They went throughout the nation, and certain Ymcas, they put that steeple on the top. But that was one of the more modern stores in our neighborhood. So now this parking lot wasn't here. These were buildings, you know. The demise of Washington Street has a lot to do with no place to park. Dr. J.C. Morgan was the first black to head up the housing authority. And yeah, look down this street. It's a little wider than it used to be. But can you imagine parking on both sides of the street? He went down to city council and got them to prohibit parking on one side of the street because people used to get out and fuss. Cars would be backed up because it couldn't move. But everybody had to be on Washington Street. If I didn't do it but run up there on Underhill and touch it once a day, I had to be on Washington Street because this is where it was. We had the highest economic base in the city of High Point at one time because we were forced to spend our money down here. And they had no idea the money that we were spending down here. Okay? Oh yeah, some people paid the doctors with chickens and milk and all that other stuff. We paid them whatever we had. Okay, let's go on down. Daniel Brooks was down in here. I said a lot. If you look, I don't want you to get stuck on my map, but when you go home, this is a 1924 Sanborn map, and these things are available in the library. And I just pencil in some other things that were there after 1924, so you can understand what's what. Okay, so let me see now. Well, how should I give this to you? These were houses in this area, no stores right there. The house, with the Dutch roof on it, that is the Dr. Gaylord's house. Dr. Gaylord, he was our second black doctor. Our first doctor was Dr. Guerin, Dr. Guerin, Alfonso Guerin. And there's a picture of him at the museum. Yeah, Dr. Gaylord, I say was second, but he practiced in that house. You know, he saw patients there. You know, if you were dying, if you had a disease, that was just it. You know, where else are they going to take you? This is a very interesting intersection here. Now I want you to look down. The street there. Let me see where the car's parked on the right-hand side down there. That's Richardson Street, intersection Richardson. That was the dividing line between the races. Now, it was so interesting. They wanted to put a movie picture show up here, and all the people on the other side down there picketed. They didn't want a movie house in their neighborhood, but they had to come down here and go around. That was before they cut another street in, and they didn't want to come past, and you know, with all these black folks gathering at movie. And there were some incidents, you know, involved. Our first police officer was killed. He was called down here about a disturbance one night, and he came down here. I don't know, they said he called. I don't know about these telephones or whatever. But anyway, they didn't have walkie-talkies then. But he comes down, this theater had let out, and he's trying to get people to disperse, and he's overpowered. So here comes the chief of police, and the chief of police, I'll cut this short. People start running, and these two black men are running away, and all of a sudden there's a gunshot. Now, this is our first police officer. He's mortally wounded. He lived a little while, you know, in the hospital. And front page of the Enterprise now, not me, it says that his wife said, if I die, sue the city because the police chief shot me. So evidently they're shooting at the men and the police chief. But you know the police department will not accept that. They will not tell you that. They will not accept the fact that this happened. Once again, facts. We had our own post office. They didn't want us to come downtown on Green Street, so we had Station B. And I have lots of postcards at home, people mailing. Station B. But it wasn't our first one. Let me see. The first one was down at the Henley Hotel, and then it was across the street over here on that side, and then it was right here. But we had everything. At one time, we had 5 doctors, 2 dentists, and an attorney practicing on the street. How many do we have now? 0. 0. 0. We blame the city. Oh, the city's responsible for the demise. Oh, no. Everybody has to take responsibility for it. Everybody. We all contributed to it. Oh, let's go to Carl Chavis and Mary Cloud Bethune, YMCA down here on the left. They were further down the street in wooden houses and when they began. And in the 40s, they decided to invest the money. And very interesting fact. You heard of Greensboro and Winston-Salem, and I'm going to tell you about High Point. Mary Cloud Bethune came here twice and spoke involving the Y that they named it. James Weldon Johnson wrote your Negro National Anthem, came here and spoke when he was director of the NAACP. Sat down there at William Penn and talked. My most famous port, not that lady in Winston-Salem. Oh, my port is Langston Hughes. I'm a Langston man. Came here twice, sat on the stage at William Penn and read his poetry. Not Winston-Salem or Greensboro, High Point. And I bet you every day he strolled up this street and got him some pig feet and collard greens, because that's what they were serving up here. That's right, you could smell it before you even got here. That's Washington Street. There was one other one. Oh, Booker T. Washington. Yeah, Booker T. came here. The Quakers recruited Booker T. Washington to find a colored principal for High Point Normal and Industrial Institute. And for you people that don't know, it's later became William Penn. So it had 4 different names before it became William Penn, and I'm challenging anybody to come up with them. But anyway, now right here on this corner, that's our last attempt at a library in the community. But let me see, the first one was on the campus of William Penn, a white club out of Emerywood, a women's club, the Truser Club, decided that blacks needed a museum. And one was married to old man Snow, the old Snow Lumber Company. They got the lumber and everything donated, and that's where it started. And then it came up the street, those great big buildings that we're gonna pass there. The third one was up here. Now I want to talk about this one. This used to be a fish market, okay?
Right here?
Yes, right, yeah. And we were on the top floor. Now you can imagine this 90-degree weather we've had. And you sitting up there trying to study something? Whoa, it was smelly. And you didn't, you sneak up to the library and talk to your little girlfriend. Oh no, that talking stuff is over. We're gonna get out of here before noon, because this place is gonna stink. But hey, it was just a part of life. It never, I told you I'm 82 years old, so I had to get when it comes to me. If you go on the other side of Richardson Street, a lady by the name of Ethel Hughes, Ethel Cobb Hughes, married, anyway, she lived, old man Griffin, principal first black principal of High Point Normal Industrial, bought some land down here. And in the 50s, she decided she was gonna build a house. And when they got wind of it on the other side, oh man, they had a petition. We don't want this black lady colored person in this community. And by the way, I read every page of City Council records from 1859 to 1971. And my student here, my PhD in history now, can attest to the fact that what I post is right out of City Council records. Okay, this one came out of the Enterprise. the worker, they worked for the city, giving out the license, told the people that filed the petition, it's nothing we could do. However, if we had known before she filed, we could have stopped this. It shows you the power downtown in terms of dealing with folks. So that was her. But she got the house built down there. And as a matter of fact, what's that, Cumberland down there, Cumberland, that runs this way? They moved Alfred J. Griffin's house off the campus of William Penn. And Lawrence Graves, towed that thing up, some mules and all that other stuff, and put it on some property down here. I don't even remember the thing coming up Washington Street. They told me about it. But yeah, they lifted that thing up and brought it up here, and it stayed a part of history. The funeral home there is new. On the other side of it is another one of the Presbyterian churches, okay? Church life back then was something that you didn't mess with. It was number one. Your life was centered around the church, your activities. This building here, I told you about it. This is old Cox. He built this. Coy Willett owns this building. He did own it. And now let's talk about this house over here. It's so important. This house is over 100 years old. The Robinson family, John Robinson, he and his brother came out of slavery. John was a brick mason, and his brother made brick. But once again, brick was expensive. That house rivaled anything in Emerywood when it was built, okay? Most of us didn't even have a living room. They had a living room and a parlor. You go in for guests, take you in the parlor, sit down and talk. Now, Gladys Robinson was the last one to live, but they had money. See the little wall there? Mm-hmm. Okay, now you think a car could go down through there? They treated all these big Buicks and stuff, You think a car could go? No. That's where the horse and buggy used to pull up. Okay, and let the groceries out. Then they would go around the back, and they had a place around there for the horse and everything else. Yeah. Now they can bring every business in the world up here, but you're gonna have a problem with parking. And once you experience it, you're not coming back. You're not coming back. So, but nobody cares, that's a godsend. Anybody know what this, come on now. Huh? No, what's this building? L&M. Yeah, the L&M Grill used to be in here. Langford and, I forget what the M stood for. Yeah. These are modern buildings, okay? I just saw Carl Little, Dr. Little's office down there. He's living up here now because his house burned in Jamestown. So he moved up here while they're renovating it. But yeah, that was Dr. Martin's building. This was the last one. That was just too modern. But Dr. Little, they used to laugh at Dr. Little, I guess on the other side of it, this black doctor down there. But patients used to be lined up all the way up the street trying to get in to see him because the white doctors didn't want to take Medicare and Medicaid for patients. They didn't want to be bothered. But Perry P. was driving a Rolls Royce, a DeLorean, and had several apartment buildings. I mean, he was a good-looking man. He was my size. He was skinny, and anytime they had a formal affair, the Alphas or whatever, I call home. Here it comes. I'll be all decked out, looking good. I don't know why, cause look, I've been married to my wife for 63 years. I got married when I was 17. And I got put out of William Penn. You couldn't go to William Penn if you were married. And Mr. Burford put me out at 10 o'clock that morning, came down to my house at 2 o'clock that afternoon, I'll never forget it. And he told my parents, I'm not gonna have an honor student, National Honor Society student, Crown and Scepter Club, working in a factory. He said, we gotta do something. Next thing I knew, I get in the car going to Greensboro and got me in Emmanuel Lutheran Junior College, which was a boarding school. That's where I finished my senior year. and I've been with her for 63 years. I've put an ad in the paper to get rid of her several times,
Poor Gladys.
but it just won't work. So, right before they cover this over with concrete, because this is where the Kilby starts, right? Arcade. Okay, now, the Jink Jordan, who lived around here on 4th Street that we just left, Jink Jordan had our first cab company, Blue Ribbon Cab. And Jink was a big man. He loved it. He could cook, but he loved his cooking. And he sat on a stool down there and did business, you know, and cooked and had cabs going here and there. And you couldn't even see the stool when he sat down. He adopted a young lady named Sadie. And he gave Sadie this, they call them cafes then, cafe. And he moved further down the street and opened the TV Grill. Only thing good about TV Grill, they sold some nice Wild Irish Rose wine. Now, this is one of our tragedies here. Okay, you had the Kilby Arcade, and then you had the Kilby Hotel. So let me see. You can kind of tell, that was a hotel on that side of that clear spot, and then you had the arcade. And now, there's some, as I said, there's just so many lies out here regarding, no, they're lies, regarding our history up here. And we have something called the High Point, the African American Heritage Guide. And Street Boynton came up with that idea. He went down to Durham, North Carolina to a meeting, and he was our city manager at that time. And they had this brochure about the black community. So I was at a city council meeting. He came out, he said, Glenn, can we do something like this in High Point? I said, let me study it, you know. So 2 weeks I called him up. I said, yeah, I think it's nice. Well, we didn't have the money. So he said, will you do the history part? Yes. I got to tell you this. So anyway, we get to this point. I don't do the Kilby, I don't do Rosetta Baldwin, and I don't do John Coltrane, because there's just too many exaggerations and lies involving it. Not by them, but the people that have studied them or whatever. One lie just led to another. Okay, I said, please. Okay, oh no, we know somebody in the community. Okay, fine. They call their favorite person up in the community. Brochure comes out, phone ring, Edith Brady from the director of the museum called me, Glenn, I know you're laughing. I was, It said, this is what it said under John Coltrane. Nanny Kilby hired John Coltrane to do our jobs around the hotel. And when he wasn't doing his work, he sat on the back steps and practiced the saxophone. Anybody think anything wrong with that? He was born in 27, she died in 23. Somewhere around there, 23, 24. I mean, that's a miraculous birth. That should be right there with Jesus Christ. I mean, so that's the type thing that I have been fighting. And they went one thing after another. They did another one and did the same thing. This is like Al Campbell had our first black newspaper. That's an outright lie. He wanted attention. But a lot of this, when you don't know, when you don't go back and research, you don't know, you're going by when you were born, this is the only thing you ever heard. But our first black newspaper was around 1935, Ossie Davis. Not that Ossie Davis now. That's what I was thinking about. Yeah, but Ossie Davis came out with it, published the Piedmont American. I posted a picture of it online. Right. And by the way, that old library, I showed you our last library up there. He owned that property at one time, and he used his money to have it graded and set up tennis courts so blacks can learn how to play tennis. And then he founded his tennis club, and they pooled their money and put up lights so people can come from Greensboro and Winston-Salem and compete against each other. Isn't that something? Right here on the street. Oh, Lord, turn around again. You know, this used to be vacant. Guess what was on this lot at one time? And you getting this? Okay, because this is important. Okay, old man Kester owned the furniture company.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
Kester came down here and built a putt-putt golf course. Washington Street putt-putt. No, Washington Street golf course. Right there on that lot. Okay? We had a putt-putt. Oh, do you see a putt-putt? Any recreation now? Or down the street we have some? Yes. We couldn't go down on Main Street. We couldn't go down on Main Street to their fairs. We weren't allowed. So when they had a carnival, the carnival used to come here. Silas Green from New Orleans had this Oochie Coochie show. And he'd come here once a year in this white, green, and yellow tent and set up over there. And, but from all back through these woods, back through there, I did a story once. I call them super highways. We could get anywhere on Washington Street going through those paths. Anyway, if I wanted to go to L&M, I knew which path to take was going to bring me up here. I didn't have to come out here. Okay. But yeah, everything right there on that lot. It started out as a wood lot. Our Gray from the south side had a wood lot there, selling wood and repairing old wood furniture. Okay, let me get past. Okay, now we know the arcade. Now the arcade was, and don't believe this stuff about all these people came here, all these orchestras and all this other stuff. No, none of them. None. John Coltrane left back, and he said F High Point. Okay. Some people ran into him up there, friends I know, and but his son, when they bought the piano from his aunt, and they invited his son to come down for the dedication, he said that's the first time he ever heard of High Point. The hotel, if you could have seen the hotel falling apart, I was standing right across the street, and somebody reported a noise during the night, and came up here, and all of a sudden it just, boom, just collapsed. And we weren't able to get anything out of there. This building right here was owned by Dr. Lamont. We had, Bostic had a music place. He used to sell old 45 records and stuff in there. The band, what is it, band box? Over here on this, where you see all the gravel, there was a 2-story building there. And you had insurance companies upstairs, quite naturally, barbershop downstairs. We had plenty of barbershops. But here again, a lot of businesses on the street. Here, unfortunately, another demise here, the First Baptist Church. And this street right here, Otis Tillman. Okay. Otis Tillman was, I told you, was not our first black doctor. But everybody says that because that's the only one in them. He came here in the 50s. Our first black doctor, I told you earlier, was like 1900. Okay, but he lived down here. So everybody moved to High Point and we lived down there until, because we were compacted into this force. We had South Side, East Side, Macedonia, and half of it, we had a little 2-block area over in, off English Road. Okay, that was it.
Burns Hill was where?
On the other side over there. Okay. And what happened to the First Baptist Church? They hired this company. They were having some structural problems. And the idiot came up here and took out a support beam. And they didn't know it. And all of a sudden, the church just started leaning.
Yeah.
So finally, they had to bring it down. When they said integrate, we're going to integrate, we couldn't wait to get across Centennial and find us a white doctor. We couldn't wait. That's the truth. Guess what? In our haste and ignorance, we walked right past this doctor's office by the name of Edward Diggs. He was the first graduate of the University of North Carolina Medical School. Wow. Isn't that something? just how bright we are for that one word. So oh, here, this was the Ingrams and the Moores were into pool rooms and bail bondsmen. So they controlled the pool rooms in High Point, Lexington, and Thomasville. They did good. They made a lot of money. Okay, right here, folks, this is our first black permanent theater. This was built in 1939. A man came over from Greensboro. He was white, $10,000 in City Council records. That's what it cost him, and got the permit, and he built this theater. It's been standing. As a matter of fact, I have a row of seats in my game room. I finished them off myself. I got all the chewing gum off. But I like to say, on Saturdays, this place was full. It was the cheapest babysitting facility in the High Point. They pull you up and let you out and pick you up at 5 o'clock or whatever. But Mr. Bennett and those that ran it, they knew you, and you weren't allowed out until somebody, relative or something, came and picked you up.
The Ritz. Say the name. The Ritz.
Yeah. And Bob, you heard of Bob Brown?
Yeah.
Okay, Bob Brown's first office was upstairs. And guess what? Bob was so poor, he used used furniture. They had some room full of old furniture. And he said, Bob said, you ask him, who's the furniture belong to? He said, I don't know. Do you want it? He said, yeah. So, but Bob said he came up here faithful with a little briefcase and stuff for a whole year, never had a customer. Okay. Over here, the last house to tear down over here was Reverend Salter's house. He was a minister over here at First Baptist. Okay, the Negro men's Ymca was back in here in the house. Okay, on the other side of the gray building, back in there, was the YW. And they were in houses, and it was nice, you know. But male and east now, what we remember is an oil company there sold kerosene, because the stores down in Daniel Brooks were kerosene. So he made money. He had a fuel company, Mail and Leach. Okay, over here, you had a pool room, and you had the White Way building. And I didn't know until I moved back home 40-something years ago that this was owned by the lady that lived upstairs, some black lady. She owned the building. I didn't know that. I started searching deeds. But you had the White Way Barber Shop, the White Way Cafe, and she lived upstairs. And now, you had pool room, eating establishments right here. Okay, on that side. The woods down in here, they call it Canned Heat Jungle. And look, see, I told you, got my student over there. This is the truth. Canned heat, they go in a TV grill. You know, sterno you warm food with? They would take that and put it in a nylon stocking and squeeze that juice out. It was like 300 proof. Oh yeah, they had burns on their faces. Now on this side, when they lowered the train tracks, they left these caves in the building. I mean, in the dirt along the bank. And the winos stayed over there. But I was 7, 8 years old. I used to come over here. All of us came up here by ourselves, anywhere. But I passed through there, and those men, back then, you didn't mess with a child. You didn't call, no police ever showed up. You just disappeared. You didn't mess with you. Hey, little Chavis, tell your daddy and mom I said hello, you know. And they had everything down there, beds and store and everything. But they couldn't stand each other. And sometimes they all get juiced up and they stand here and they fuss at each other. But okay, now Becky's wasn't here. So from right along here and down to the end of Becky's, you had Clarence Jordan's Cafe, you had TV Grill, yeah, you had the TV Grill. Then you had Dr. Lamont's, the pharmacy, And then you had Ballinger's and you had Langford. All these offices right there in that building. So, oh, we were jumping on. We had everything we needed. Oh, by the way, you all familiar with the telephone company downtown? Broad Street. Before they lowered the train tracks, Broad Street used to come right behind all these trees over here. Broad Street would come all the way down, and Broad Street ended up down at East Street. And right down in that curve there, so I try to get people to visualize what it was like before that. And so stuff just disappeared. That's what bothers me, and the people it's hard. I tried to contact a couple of owners of property. They wouldn't return my calls. How you gonna help save something? And they don't even care. But if you want to learn something about a place, look at your city council records and look at the city directories. And guess what the big mystery is in High Point? We have a museum. Honest to God, we have a museum. But nobody knows where it is, especially black folks. 'Cause I'm out there all the time. We don't go out there. That is one of the best sources in the world. I call it my Disney World. I love it out there. Those young ladies, we can talk that language, boy. They can pop up and they will find stuff for you. Okay, I thought I stepped on you. But anyway, would somebody tell that fool we saw his car? Okay, now, Patrick Harmon is responsible for this park. He went in with the city and got this park built down here for people. And they sell vegetables down here, well, they used to. I haven't been up here in a long time. However, years ago, this was a row of flats. Yep. Does anyone know what a flat is? Not you. Anybody else know what a flat is?
Apartments?
Yeah, you might call it apartment. That's what it was, basically, yeah. But see, okay, right in here you had a 2-story flat. And my wife and I, we called people, nobody can remember going in there. But you had apartments upstairs, downstairs. But we do know, because my wife lived in with the grandmother, around here, Harris Covington owned those. And it was a 2-room flat. In other words, you have a living room, bedroom, and a kitchen. They had a spigot out back for water for everybody that lived there, and an outhouse. But my wife has never complained about it. To them, it was life. I mean, it was there. But Harris Covington owned those. Now down at the end where this thing comes out down there, down on Main Street, they had something called Zesto. Yeah. Oh yeah, big ice cream cone. They didn't want us, we go down there, you had to stand outside there, well, you couldn't, they didn't want you on the property. Whatever. Guess what we had? Right at the end down there, we had our ice cream parlor. The Moores built an ice cream parlor, and the name just skipped. But yeah, we can go down and get that twirly thing, whatever, rat tail ice cream, dip it in chocolate and nuts and stuff. Yeah.
Like the funeral home Moores?
Yeah, Oh yeah, they were perfect. And since you mentioned it, right here, but right here, yeah, right here was United Cab Company. So this would be our second cab company. And it was about as wide as, it was not very wide. It was a house, it had a big picture window in the front, cabs all over the place, and our cab, best way to get a cab back then was call the bootlegging house. So they hung out the bootlegging house. So we knew the bootleggers and which cab you wanted. But, okay, and then this space right here, there was a white 2-story house. Professor Whitted built his house here. He was a principal over at Leonard Street. And when he died, his daughter finally left the house. But the Moore Funeral Home came over here from the south side, and they set up a funeral home here. So Okay, we're getting on down here. Oh, in the distance, if you visitors, that's the Griffin School. That was a new school for us. That was around 1959. I was in the first graduating class in Griffin. I got a picture sitting on the stage, acting all innocent. And let me see. Remember now, they lowered those train tracks. Can you imagine when the train, everything's above ground? And trying to get from one side to the other. I thought I'd never see this. Our doctor, Dr. Whitten, yeah, this was his, he built this building. He called it Whitten Clinic. And Dr. Kraft came in with him. And then these were office spaces. You had barber shops and whatever, whoever wanted office space at that time. And this is the church that I was born and raised in right here. It's a Baptist church now. I don't want to remember the name. The only thing I want to remember is St. Mark.
Yeah, that's what I remember.
Right. And, but, short story, remember I told you about wood? All this was wood. This, the church. About 1910, it burned to the ground. Over here, had a juke joint. Old Lee Flake had a juke joint, and he had some rental houses, and one of his tenants knocked over an oil lamp and set the thing on fire. And the paper said that the fire was so intense that the fire hoses were popping. And so the church burned to the ground. Jesse Edmondson, the black barber, on Main Street, he did white only hair. He came out of slavery. And his wife, Minnie, had a salon for women. She came out, that was their trade. So, but his members of his congregation came together and helped them raise the money to build what you see here. Now it's been added on to over the years, but it was set up to seat 500 people when they built it. And you can tell, the only thing about that was a lot, some of the windows had that old lead paint on them, but they've gotten most of that straightened out. So.
Isn't this where many of the civil rights marches started?
Oh yeah, yeah. And this is another, I'm glad you mentioned that part because I'm here, the Juneteenth people invited me. But all the things they're doing now, everybody's doing something, cooking and everybody having a good, well anyway, they did it differently then. They celebrated on January 1st. You saw my post. And they spoke about the Negro, us as a people, what we've accomplished, what happened to us. They aren't doing that now. All they want is a hamburger and a beer. Okay, this is our first freestanding doctor's office. Dr. Murray Brooks Davis built this office, okay? He lived on the corner of Underhill and West Street. And, oh, by the way, Gail Hudson Simmons used to live on Underhill.
Yeah, sure did.
And her husband lived on the post side of town. Oh, see this grassy area back here? That used to be Piedmont Hosiery. When you look on your map, you'll see it back there, Piedmont Hosiery Mill. And I talked to Jim Millis before he died. I wrote a column about it. And he told me that it was the only one in town that trained blacks to be fixers and boarders. We were laborers in the other factories. And when you looked in the windows, oh, they didn't have any air conditioning in there. They had those windows up and those women in there with that steam coming out of those socks. And, but that's where it was. Now, there used to be a creek. They've covered it up now with something, concrete. And, but a lot of people got infected because they were dumping the old dye and all the other stuff in there. My mother got typhoid, what is it? Yellow, one of those fevers because she lost all her hair and playing around in this stuff. So it was dangerous. But Murray Davis, he was my doctor. He brought me in this world, but he didn't do it in his office. He did it down on Underhill. And that's the reason I'm mad at my sister today. She came home in an ambulance. 3 years later, they didn't live at home. You go to the hospital. I never forgot that.
I never forget my brother was born and it looked like a hearse. Well,
Yeah,
probably
oh
was a
yeah,
hearse.
oh yeah. Before they had ambulances, if you wanted an ambulance, you called a funeral home.
That's right.
These are what you call factory homes. These are factory homes. There were more of these down on Echo Street. Yeah, those things have been there a long time. So if I'm 80-some years, they have got to be 100 years old at least. At least. Before they lowered the train tracks, can you imagine going up through here and that train's over there on that side? And a lot of people got killed. Y'all remember Paul McAdoo? Yeah, he used to sell liquor back here. His daddy did. Well, I have to get on everybody. But look, in the distance there, that's the original building built by the students on that campus. Those are the trades that they taught at High Point Normal. And as a result, look at that beautiful building that's still standing. As we come up on the walking bridge, that's not an original walking bridge. Ours was totally different. This is concrete and weathered wood and all that other stuff. Ours was cast iron and non-treated wood. And you could be walking across it and all of a sudden your leg disappear. The wood rotted out. And we were so devilish, we would start shaking the bridge when the young ladies on there and they had to give us a kiss to get off. But yes, that was the original building. But see, the city of High Point had no clue. They were not going, that was not in their plans to build a walking bridge. But this black man, my mother said, she remembers, they had to go to school. We didn't have those big yellow buses. You walked to school, Leonard Street, and they had them walking guards. We had those out there with these little white belts on and stuff, directing traffic. But one of the steps fell over and it crushed his ribs. And he sued the city of High Point. And within 2 weeks, the city manager had a game plan to build a walking bridge for $3,000. And they built that walking bridge. Not this one, as I said. All this is going to have to be moved. Well, I told them before they put it up here. I said, city council records, they already told me. I said, you're going to have to move it. Oh, no. Okay, fine. I've done my part. But all this is going to change. They're going to widen this up. They're going to close that lane close to the rail. They're going to create another lane that's going to run down to the curve. And this campus was covered in these beautiful oak trees. Look at what we have now. They just let them go and rot out. But you come out there with your sweetheart after school and sit down for a few minutes. Man, good old days. See, can you imagine now if that bridge wasn't there, you would have to go all the way back up to Centennial Street, all the way down by the park to go from one side to the other. So that split, the train split the community up. All the ladies are like this one. See the church in the distance here? Yeah. Okay. That's, when they established, that church was established by Dr. Guerin's wife. She put up the money, and it was called Women's Memorial. And women ran the church. There were no men on the board. And after years and years of progress, Smith, one of the ministers at Penn, he and his family down there, you know how some families create problems, they wanted somebody on the board. And that's when the church went downhill. As soon as they let men on there, they just messed up with their ideas. What is it called now? What's it? Pearson Memorial, yeah. And it wasn't on Pearson Street. I'm trying to figure out where Pearson came from. But I know it used to be Women's Memorial. Okay, now, that's Elko Street. Oh, see that paved part on the other side? See that political sign down there? Okay, on the other side. See that little clearing right on? Okay, that used to be what? Come on, Reverend. I got you that time.
The D-Berry's Cleaners?
No,
That was
there was a restaurant there. The Toot and Tail. The Toot and Tail. Our first black attorney, T.F. Sanders, opened the Toot and Tail. None of us had cars. I don't know why we're gonna drive up there. You know, you're supposed to drive up there and they come out with the little trays and stuff, you know, taking orders. We just standing out there in the rain, you know. And I have some pictures of it somewhere. It's probably gonna be in my next book. And then let's get this straight regarding hotels. The first black hotel was not the Kilby Hotel. It was the Hinton Hotel, right there beside the Ritz Theater and the First Baptist Church. Old man Hinton had a restaurant down on Main Street. And they didn't want him down there. They forced him down here, came down here and built an 11-room wooden hotel. And in my first book, got a picture of the family sitting out front with that little fur cape sewn. He and his wife they both could not, he couldn't read or write. She couldn't write, but she could read. But they made a hell of a business couple. And thank goodness they had a good attorney, a white attorney, that didn't take advantage of them. And they did well. So that was the first one. And then the Kilby Hotel, and then the Henley Hotel on the corner of Underhill and Washington. Now, if anybody sat on the back steps and practiced their saxophone, it would have been at the Hill, because they had a back step that led up to the top floor where the people stayed, because they had businesses downstairs. D-Berry's Cleaners, just a lot of business going around, beauty shops. And then on the other side of that, you had Hoover Funeral Home. Hoover was a big thing back then. He wasn't the first, but he was. Old Walt was that cigar boy. He could charm you, boy. He put you in the ground for $500 when it really cost $300. So you never knew it. He was a charmer, boy. He's a good man. But see, everybody went to church. So everybody knew everybody. All the business people. You know, we knew each other. Okay. 1925, they segregated cafes. Everybody's eating in the same establishment, enjoying themselves, no problems whatsoever. And here's this sanitation officer by the name of Halsey. He can't stand that. He's racist. So he goes before council and says that the blacks and whites are eating out of the same building, using the same dishes and utensils. Well, what did council do? They passed an ordinance that you could eat in the same building, but there had to be a partition between you. And you could use the same dishes and utensils only if you had one of those new steam cleaners, it said. And half of them couldn't afford that, so that meant that you couldn't eat there. So. Okay, folks, we can start. Well, I hope you enjoyed it.
Yes.